Good morning on this Sunday, November 21st, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Republicans revealed Georgia's new congressional map this week. Democrats have a lot of concerns and questions. Also, 9 days until the runoff election in the Atlanta mayor's race between Felicia Moore and Andre Dickens. And closing arguments are set to begin in the Ahmad Arbery trial tomorrow after a dramatic week inside and outside of the courtroom. Phil, Theron, Martha, and Bobby are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Lawmakers unveiled and started to vote on Georgia's new congressional map, and it makes the 6th congressional district much more friendly to Republicans.
We think this map fairly represents all Georgians and is a map that we can be proud of. It is not gerrymandered, but respects the principles that we adopted, that is, everyone on this committee agreed to at the beginning of this process.
But Democrats disagree, saying the map should be more fairly split in what has become a competitive state. The map gives Republicans 9 congressional seats to the Democrats 5. The biggest changes are in Metro Atlanta in District 6 and 7. The former reliable Republican districts turn blue. The new maps concede District 7th as a Democratic stronghold for Carolyn Bordeaux. District 6, however, represented by Congresswoman Lucy McBath, becomes a Republican district encompassing North Fulton County, stretching north to Forsyth and Dawson counties, and part of Cherokee. Republicans now hold an 8-6 majority in the congressional delegation. Phil, let's go to you first this week on this map. You heard in the story folks really are questioning a district that puts folks in North Fulton with folks in Forsyth, Dawson, and parts of Cherokee. Is that a fair district? Is that an equally represented district?
It is a fair district. Let's bear in mind that these are population shifts that have to be dealt with every 10 years by the legislature through their map making. And let's go back and do a little history. Number one, the U.S. Supreme Court has said you can partisan gerrymander. So a lot of the media likes to talk about black and white, but it's Democrat versus Republican. That's the way it's always been. That's the way the system is. And the Democrats for years, the last time they redistricted, they tore up neighborhoods. They had things stretching all across the state, up and down. Nothing like the Republicans have done responsibly. In fact, the Democrat maps, the last time they did it, were ruled unconstitutional. So the Republicans followed the guidelines of 2010 very closely. They wanted to do that so it would hold up under court scrutiny. There will be court cases. And even the Obama Justice Department 10 years ago agreed with those maps. So the Republicans feel pretty good about the fairness issue.
Theron, what do you think? Will these maps withstand a court challenge, assuming they pass out of the legislature and get the approval from Governor Kemp?
We have to wait and see, and the legislative process right now is what we're going through. And I think as we tape on Friday, the state legislature have not voted on these maps yet, but it's been proposed. But ultimately, Lori, I think this is going to end up in a huge legal battle, no matter what the maps are, no matter what the legislature approves. But I'm confident, and let me tell you why. District 6 used to be a very, very Republican, conservative district. It was a Republican stronghold, and Lucy McBath beat Karen Handel in that race, and she's the incumbent. And in District 7, which they're trying to now take away, is a seat that Republicans lost to Carolyn Bordeaux. It was once held by Rob Woodall, who decided to retire. And so clearly, for them trying to go from 8 to 6, they're trying to go from 9 to 5. And I think they've sort of pretty much conceded that District 7 is going to be a district that Carolyn Bordeaux, if she decides to run there, will be okay. But they're clearly going after District 6, which is a district that they once held, that Lucy McBath, I think if she decides to run there, will be able to ultimately be victorious. But this is clearly Republicans drawing the map, as Phil just indicated, in a partisan way to try to pick up a congressional seat. I just think that they cannot make the mistake of doing any type of gerrymandering, and it's got to be able to legally hold up in court, because if not, the maps will fail, and then ultimately we'll be in a very tough position.
Martha, weigh in here, because we've all been around and remember the early 2000s when Republicans were accusing Democrats of doing the same thing.
Well, and it's interesting, too, if you look beyond 6 and 7, which I kind of agree with the assessment that both seats could not be returned to the Republican Party, if you will. Only one was going to have the right amount of be able to move the lines enough. And most people looking at it believe the 6th district was the easiest one to win back. But if you look at the 9th district, the current congressman has been drawn out of his district if this map passes. And Andrew Clyde is a first-term congressman. He's in leadership, and it's kind of surprising. And I know that Hall County folks like to be at the center of the district, but there's a lot of challenges there. So I think it's also interesting to look at, even on the Republican side, who has been drawn out and what that actually means. So I do think that the 6th district will be won again by a Republican. It will be a very contentious Republican primary. There's a lot of people in that, but I think this map concedes that probably the 7th will stay Democrat.
Bobby, your interpretation of the map, especially the 6th, because you're talking about North Fulton and Cherokee and Dawson counties. Those folks have a lot in common there.
Yeah, and you're taking out parts of the district that have been staples for years, like Sandy Springs and Roswell to the south, which is now, I believe, encompassed by the new potential 5th district, which is represented by Nikeen Williams, the head of the state party. But Lucy McBath, Congresswoman, has a decision to make, whether she is going to try and stick it out in this district that is now a Trump plus 15 district in what looks like it could be a potential rough year for Democrats nationwide at the federal level because of things that have been going on, or decide to move over into either the 7th district, which is currently represented by Carolyn Bordeaux, or one of the other districts in town, and take on a fellow Democratic incumbent to try and hold a seat in Congress. Now, you'll also notice about 7, yes, they did draw that into a Democratic district, but they also drew Carolyn Bordeaux out of the district. So you're going to have some interesting decisions being made here by several of these incumbents on where they think they're going to put their flag and plant it, and what kind of matchups that's going to create within the Democratic primaries.
Farron, overall, do you think this was a fair process for Democrats?
No, I think it could have been more transparent. I think that, while we did know that Republicans were going to do what Democrats have done previously, I do think there could have been more transparency. And I think that the Republicans, quite frankly, Lori, missed an opportunity here to appeal to a lot of the voters that they've lost. I think this gives Democrats an opportunity to question the process. Now, let's be also fair. There are, we haven't talked about the state House and state Senate maps yet, but there are 4 seats where Republicans are going to have to run against each other if they decide to, and Democrats are going to have to run against each other. But particularly on these congressional maps, I think they missed the mark there. And one quick thing for our viewers, Lori, and we all on the panel know this, you do not have to physically live in the district that you want to run for. That is state law. But it does give you an advantage to say that, hey, I live in this district, or I've lived in this district as you run. But I'm confident. I think if Carolyn Bordeaux decides to run for District 7, clearly she'll get reelected. I'm also confident that Congresswoman Lucy McBath, if she decides to run in the 6th district, which she will, I think she'll be any Republican that they put up, because I think that she is a Democrat that appeals to all voters in her district. She's just not going to be painted as some radical left-wing Democrat.
Phil, I'll let you comment on the process and whether you think it's fair, but also the 14th remains Republican, but the extremely conservative district includes parts of Cobb now under the new map.
Well, that's a good point, too, because we have 14 congressional districts and we've only dealt with a few. And I would add that the 2nd district, where Democrat incumbent Sanford Bishop is, that lost population, and so he's lost some Democrat votes there, and some rural voters were added. These maps are going to be good for the next 10 years. So the Republicans are looking at what's going to happen over the next 10 years, and that district could slide over to the Republicans. So there could be 2 GOP pickups. But is any redistricting process fair in all 50 states? No, it's partisan. So when you say is it fair? No, I think it was transparent. The Democrats could whine all they want, just like the Republicans, were upset in the last time the Democrats were in control. That's the way it works.
It's politics. All right, we'll leave it there, everybody. Thank you. Coming up, Governor Brian Kemp out with a new ad as we wait on word whether former Senator David Perdue will challenge him in the Republican primary.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Still no official decision on whether former Senator David Perdue will make a run for governor. That would set up quite a showdown between him and incumbent Republican Governor Brian Kemp. Martha, you had an interview with former Senator Perdue. What's the scoop?
Yeah, so he gave me a lot more than I thought he would. We get together on a regular basis to talk about China, and of course President Biden had a meeting with President Xi, so we were getting together for that. But of course I asked him about the run for governor, and he gave more indication that he was running publicly than he has anywhere else. And so he talked about the current administration caving on certain issues related to the 2020 election. He talked about education and how important that was. He also talked about, his desire to think about running for governor. So he hasn't made the decision yet. He and Bonnie are still praying about it, but he's closer now and has publicly said more now than he has up until this point.
Bobby, the former senator talks a lot in his comments about the election in 2020, about it being stolen. What about this strategy if it's part of his campaign?
Yeah, very interesting when you lose the election and then all you can talk about is the fact that it was stolen. I think it is absolutely disgraceful that someone is considering running for governor of the state of Georgia on the platform that an election was stolen based on a lie when it was not stolen. It is the most absurd thing I've ever seen. And as a Democrat, I will sit back and watch and laugh as this happens on the Republican side, because they will eat each other up. They will keep the election deniers at home in a general election, and it'll enable a Democrat to potentially win the governorship of Georgia. So have at it, guys, if you want to do it, but it's embarrassing.
Phil, I know you've said all along that you thought Senator Perdue, former Senator Perdue, would step into the governor's race. I know you want to respond to Bobby as well.
Well, the answer is yes. Senator Perdue will be running. I think any consultant worth their salt would advise him don't announce during Thanksgiving week. That would be ridiculous. No one's really paying attention. So I think you'll see something right after that. And as I've said on the program before, he's reached out to major donors. He's pulling consultants together. He's doing all the right things any candidate would want to do to prepare. Although I really disagree with Bobby and even some Republicans. Obviously, no party wants to have a contentious, nasty primary, but Bobby and Theron and the Democrats seem to forget, although I think Bobby has acknowledged it somewhat, that the Democrats are going to have a huge time getting re-election anywhere in this country unless they're really deep blue areas because of the tremendous backlash, the unpopularity of Biden, for example, President Biden, the unpopularity even of our two senators that are going along with reckless spending and soft on crime policies and open border policies. They're doing nothing like some of the moderate Democrats to even tone down the inflationary reckless spending policy. So that all attributed to a Republican gain, just like in Virginia. So if there's a Republican primary, no matter who the nominee is, they're going to be in pretty good shape. Even though there's going to be some hurt feelings, the Democrats are going to be in serious trouble when everybody looks at gasoline price hikes and grocery price hikes next year.
All right, I want to move on because I want to leave some time for the Atlanta mayor's race. Theron, the gloves came off in some of the forums and debates this week between Andre Dickens and Felicia Moore.
Yeah, it's game time now, Lori. I mean, I think that both candidates know each other very well. They've served on city council together. But I think as they get closer to Election Day and with early voting already sort of underway in Atlanta, I think the candidates are doing their best to really draw a clear distinction between the two of them, particularly on public safety. Are they, who's ready to lead the city in a better direction on day one? A lot of talk about affordability, of course, and also, the words ethics and transparency and corruption are still coming because I think a lot of people want to know, what a Dickens or Moore administration look like. But I think they've got to figure out how to close. And as Phil mentioned, Thanksgiving is coming up, so I encourage people to go out and early vote. I early voted this time around. But they also got to make sure that for those who do not early vote, that they got to make sure that folks know the candidates, know their records, and try to turn out their base and be able to get additional voters to ultimately be victorious on November 30th.
Theron, I just want to follow up with you real quickly. Andre Dickens says he did not vote to defund the police when he voted to withhold $73 million in funding. Critics say his vote says it all. What is your take on that?
I think Andre Dickens has basically made it a point, Lori, to clarify that vote. I mean, he said clearly recently when I interviewed him on a podcast, Political Breakfast, that he did not vote to defund the police. Felicia Moore pushes back and say that the vote definitely sort of contradicts, what he's saying, and I think she's made it more about judgment. But what you've seen from the Dickens campaign is that they're attacking this head on. They're communicating directly to voters. He's doing it through paid advertisement, text messages. He's doing it in forums to make sure that he is not on the defense on this issue, but trying to clarify and really push back on a lot of critics. But the Moore campaign is definitely attacking him on that, and we'll just have to see how it all plays out as far as voters' interpretation of what the Dickens campaign is saying versus what the Moore campaign is saying.
Oh, Phil wants to weigh in.
Well, I would tell Theron, if I'm taking $73 million away from your secret Swiss bank account, that's defunding you. And Andre Dickens is not telling the voters the truth. He voted to defund it, and thank goodness he lost by one vote on that council vote. And also, let's talk about the city jail, which is basically closed under Keisha Lance Bottoms, which apparently is now Dickens' ally, which is a pretty bad alliance in itself. Obviously, Felicia Moore, his opponent, wants to keep that open and have a lot of other options. And Felicia Moore wants to name a new police chief after a national search. And Dickens doesn't want to do that. He wants to keep the current chief that's not doing anything.
All right, everybody, thank you. Coming up, the jury in the Ahmad Arbery trial will likely start deliberating this week. We'll discuss after the break.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Closing arguments are set to begin tomorrow in the Ahmad Arbery murder trial, where one of the defense attorneys said he did not want African-American pastors in the courtroom, something that the judge really did not like. Bobby, this was a strange request. Your thoughts?
It's very odd, and for someone who's on trial for killing a black man, I would be surprised that the defense attorney of all people would want to raise the suspicion about someone being a racist. I just, it's very curious. I'm not a legal analyst or anything, but there's been a lot of curious things in this trial. You had the judge just today decide to disallow MSNBC cameras from being in the courtroom because they were going after the jury bus. So there's a lot of stuff swirling around this, and the fact is this was just an extremely unfortunate incident, and people need to be held accountable.
Yeah, that was the Rittenhouse trial, just to be clear there.
That's right.
No, excuse me, I'm confusing the two, yes.
There's two trials going on, that's okay.
Yes.
Martha, hundreds of pastors rallied and prayed Thursday outside the courtroom as a response to the defense attorney's request. But I want to ask you, we saw this week Travis McMichael testifying in his own defense. Was this a smart move, do you think, to put him on the stand?
Well, if you're making the case of self-defense, you kind of have to be on the stand. So that's what the case he's making, but he did a terrible job. Look, the Ahmad Arbery case is a travesty for a number of reasons. First, the death of a young man, but also because the attention was not paid to it. They tried to cover it up. I mean, there were so many mistakes made early on, but I think the kind of really calm demeanor of the prosecution in this case has really laid out all of the facts that this is not self-defense. Okay, this is not something that happened, and you can't make the case for self-defense. So I feel good going into final arguments that these perpetrators are going to be convicted. But of course, you never know with a jury trial. And as far as the prayer vigils go, they've been doing that since March of last year in that community. That community should be held up for the fact that they have handled this peacefully.
Yes, Theron and then Phil.
Yeah, I want to compliment Martha publicly because, we disagree a lot on this show, partisan-wise. But, Martha, thank you for saying that because that's something that I think you pointed out a while back. And we can't let this defense attorney hijack what really has been going on for over a year now in Brunswick. I mean, as Martha pointed out, pastors and citizens, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, have been praying peacefully. But what this defense attorney is doing, Lori, and we got to wake up, Georgia, and do not let this guy distract us from what it's the issue at hand, is that he's trying to make it about black pastors. He's calling out Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton. And the thing about this is that we have seen it in this country, no matter the color of your skin, when you are paying attention, when you are rallying around an issue for justice, when you are motivating a group of people to pay attention to make sure that justice is served, what he's trying to do is basically, distract us from the issue at hand. And so I just want people to understand, as Martha pointed out, that the gentleman who went on the stand was asked specific questions. Did your life feel threatened? And he said no. And so what we're going to hopefully find out is that these three individuals who are on trial basically killed an innocent, unarmed black man in Georgia. And so let's not get distracted by Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, all good men who do a lot of good things. And yes, I encourage more people, not just pastors, to pray for the Arbery family. But what they're trying to do in a town in southeast Georgia is divide it in a very sort of indirect but direct way to try to remove black pastors from the room when and this is America. You're able to go into a courtroom and witness a trial and show your support in a very silent but effective way. And so that really upsets me that this is going on. But I just want to thank Martha for pointing that out, because as Democrats and Republicans, we've got to call out things when they're wrong in Georgia.
Phil, yeah, what do you think about that? Because a courtroom is a public place.
Well, I do agree that unless someone is being disruptive in a courtroom, everybody has a chance to sit in. So I don't know why the defense attorney did that. I will say, on the flip side of the coin, though, I actually listened for over an hour, the Travis McMichael's attorney. I'd not heard of Bob Rubin, but I always appreciate a good opening argument or a good closing argument. I thought that attorney did a good opening argument on behalf of Travis McMichael. I say this because of the media coverage, and as you know, I've been very critical of the mainstream media on many issues for not giving the facts. Opinions are fine, but not giving the facts. I didn't realize that McMichael's attorney, when he said that Ahmad Arbery had been to that home where he had been spotted the day of the shooting 4 different times on film at night, not jogging, who was prowling around. I didn't know that. I didn't know, for example, that Travis McMichael had a confrontation with Ahmad Arbery weeks before the shooting, and it was in a police report. All I'm saying is it's interesting that these facts come out, but I'm not reading this in the mainstream media. I don't know how the trial's going to come out. I have to say the prosecutors are doing a good job, but we're not getting all of the facts on the trial.
Theron, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, look, I got to push back, Phil. That's crazy. I live right next to someone who's building a house, right? And clearly I see people in my 95% white Buckhead neighborhood multiple times a day. Matter of fact, they come and play on the bulldozers. The kids play in the dirt. They go in and out through the house multiple times a day. That does not give me the right to hunt them down in my 95% white neighborhood in Buckhead, Atlanta, and shoot them. And this whole thing about the altercation before, that doesn't matter. The bottom line is this. They sought after to kill Ahmad Arbery. And yes, he walked back through the house 4 times, but Phil, the fact that you're leaving out, and you got to be, truthful with our viewers, is that the person who was interviewed, the owner of the house, felt like, based on the video surveillance that he watched, that Ahmad Arbery not at one time, not once, attempted to steal anything or looked like he was trying to burglarize or vandalize this house. So you want to talk about facts? Don't come on the show and just give one part of the facts, is that this has all been presented. But if the homeowner didn't think that his house was being vandalized, then you can't say that Ahmad Arbery should have been shot because he went in there 4 times and was hunted down like a dog by 3 white men.
Phil, I got about 20 seconds.
No one is saying, Theron, and your emotional response that I'm in favor of anybody.
No, it's not emotional. It's factual. I laid the facts out for you.
I just said that the prosecutors have done a good job. You must have missed that sentence. My point is that I didn't know all of these facts from reading the mainstream media, and I don't know how it's going to come out. But nobody's in favor of getting shot down, Theron, and these people may be convicted.
All right, we'll have to wait and see what the jury decides. Thanks, everybody. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Well, I'm thankful this Thanksgiving week that we can all agree to disagree and still be friends. We got about 2 minutes because we went really long in that last block. Theron, I'll start with you.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Also, I want to make my Clark Central Gladiators a winner again this week. We are going to the next round of playoffs. And then lastly, I want to send my sincere condolences to the family of Michael Langford. Lord, we lost a giant in the Atlanta community. He gave me my start in city politics, was a man about the people, but definitely want to offer my condolences to him and thank Michael Langford for his outstanding service for so long in the city of Atlanta, helping people who needed his help.
Well, I covered him and interviewed him so many times. Thanks for mentioning him, Theron. Martha, over to you.
Well, my winner this week is going to be David Perdue for helping me to dominate the news cycle nationally for a day or so. I want to thank him for that. It's always great to have him on the program. And then my loser this week is going to be, I'm going to be one of those Republicans, Phil. I think the Georgia Republican voter does not need a contested governor's primary. I will cover it fairly, and I will give people my best advice. But like in 2010 and 2006, it's not a good idea.
Oh, it would give us a lot to talk about, though, huh, Martha? All right, Phil, over to you.
Well, I want to make as my winner the mayor of Union City, Vince Williams. He just came off of 10 years being the head of the Georgia Municipal Association, but he was just inducted the other day, a great honor for Vince Williams, as the president of the National League of Cities. So that's quite a coup for Georgia.
All right, Bobby, I got about 30 seconds.
All right, I'll make it snappy for you. I want to make my winner state representative from Georgia's 50th district in Johns Creek, Angelica Couch, who has decided after serving that she is going to not be running for re-election in 2022. She's a German immigrant, and we need more people like her serving in the State House. So thank you for stepping up to serve, and we'll miss you in the State House. Otherwise, happy Thanksgiving early.
Thank you for always making my deadline. I appreciate it, Bobby. And thank you so much for watching. We will see you again next week. Everybody make it a great Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.